Ron Bremner, you've got a company, Gold Medal Consulting. You consult with an awful lot of business leaders. What's the mood out there like right now?
Well, there's obviously there's a lot of worry. There's a lot of people who are unsure. There's a lot of people who are waiting for the next shoe to drop. But the other part of it, Stu, to be honest with you, there's another portion of people who are excited because during difficult times and during challenges like we've got now, it may sound counterintuitive, but the reality is a lot of great leaders are born and a lot of great brands are born and a lot of good things come out of these difficult times. And in many cases, a lot of it comes down to how you approach it. I've got a saying that I always work with my clients on, which is never let a good crisis go to waste. And we always talk about the fact that out of these difficult times come real opportunities in many cases. And opportunities in many cases that you never had the chance to be able to think about prior to all of what's going on now. There are a lot of businesses that are doing well right now. We only hear in many cases about all of the drastic things that are happening in a negative way, but there's a lot of innovation going on. There's a lot of companies that are doing well. I heard from one of my clients that Sobeys, for example, a big food company, just in the Toronto area, is about $125 million over budget. Now, there's a lot of companies that are teetering on the edge too. But I think the opportunity right now for leaders is how do you take what you're given? And the old saying about how do you make lemonades when the world hands you lemons has never been more true.
Okay, so that begs the question, how do you do that? Because there are some people, as you know, who start to think, okay, my world is evaporating around me. My clients have just stopped calling or I've been mandated to close down. How do you
Right.
start to find those opportunities or moments for leadership that allow you to be innovative and maybe identify new opportunities?
I think there's a few basics, Stu, and none of this is easy.
No.
But I think there's some things that you have to do, which is number one, take a deep breath, understand that a lot of what's going on is out of your control, but also understand that there may be more in your control than you give yourself credit for. For example, one of the challenges that a lot of my clients have right now is that they are working with whether it be a sales force or a management team, a leadership team, whatever, who are not at the office. They're at home. They're working remotely. They're not able to go down the hall, sit down and have a coffee with them. But there are other things you can do. Let me give you a few examples. For example, one of my clients told me last week that on Friday, he was taking all of his leadership team for a beer. Basically, what they were doing was getting online at 4 o'clock on a conference call, on a video conference call, and everybody was going to open a beer and they were going to sit there and catch up on the day's work. How do you look at things differently? How do you become more creative? One of the things to do with a team like this in the situation that I was just describing is the first thing I think you want to do is keep them busy, keep them focused, and get them out of the woe is me mode. Because it's very easy with all the negativity that's going on in the world, everything you read in the newspapers, everything you read online, everything you see on television, it's all full of negative news. That doesn't mean that you become oblivious to it, and that doesn't mean that you walk around in denial, but it means that you try to focus on other things that you can control, as I was getting at. So what can you control? Well, number one, I tell my people with remote teams, get them on a schedule. Get them thinking about when they wake up in the morning, even though they're at home, they're not at the office, get up at the same time if they were going to the office, have a shower, have breakfast, do your exercises, whatever you might want to do, and then have a day planned out where you're doing some work, where you're going online and watching some motivational videos, where you're reading and getting up to date on some things about your business, about your clients. There's a lot of things that you can do constructively to be able to try and take control of the situation rather than be a victim of circumstances. By getting people focused, by getting people active, I encourage them to get everybody on their leadership team, management team, to start thinking about a few things that they can do to stay busy. For example, think about 3 things that each of them individually needs to do more of to be more successful. 3 things that they need to do less of. In other words, get them strategizing about their own particular life, their own particular career, their own particular approach to business. Then get them thinking about the team that they're a part of, their management team, their leadership team. What are 3 things that that team in normal times can do more of to be successful, and things that they can do less of to be more successful? And then spread that out and get everybody thinking of what is the company, what can the company do to be more successful, and what can the company do less of? Maybe it's more communication, maybe it's more personal contact, maybe it's more pitches, maybe it's more writing personal notes to key people, maybe it's more active reading, and by active reading I mean looking in periodicals and magazines online and seeing what is available that pertains to their particular client or different clients, and sending them out to them with a little note that says, was doing my reading today and here's something I picked up I thought might be of help to you and your sales team or you and your staff. So in other words, get them busy, get them focused, get them active. Tell them to build into their schedule when they're working from home an hour's worth of exercise. Go out, have a walk, feel good, get some fresh air. So it's a matter of getting structure, putting structure in so that they're not sitting home all day watching Netflix and wasting time. So at the end of this, because there will be an end, all of these things, no matter how bleak they look at the time, there comes a time when it's over. So what you want to get as an individual, as a team, and as a company, at the end of this, when you look back, how did you spend the time? How did you use the time? How did you use it productively to become a better individual, a better team, and a better organization?
You know, I just did an interview with a fellow, Rob Chesnut, who is the Chief Ethics Officer at AirBnB. And
Right.
one of the interesting things that he said was, in times like this, your character and your integrity are going to be tested, and they will be revealed. How important
Absolutely.
is it that we recognize that we still have a commitment to our work ethic and to our ethics from an integrity perspective as an organization and as individuals?
Well, absolutely. I think that's a great point, Stu, that you make. And I think I just sent a note to a client a little while ago saying that during these difficult times, you're being graded, you're being watched, you're being evaluated as an organization. What are your ethics? What is your culture? Your culture really is being taken to the ultimate test during these times. How you have your staff and your team prepared, what their work ethic is, how loyal they are to what needs to be done. How can you call on them during difficult times and get them to pull through and follow through and to work through these issues? So I think it's a terrific point that, the way I put it to my clients is, right now is all of their Tylenol moment, okay? This is their Tylenol moment, when they've got a chance to be able to really shine, or they can flame out, or they can just kind of fade into the woodwork. But there is a great opportunity for tremendous reputations to be made right now by companies, by individuals. This is a great brand building time. When you take a look at a lot of the great leaders in the world, and a lot of the great leaders for many, many years came out of the military. Eisenhower built his brand during the war. Okay, Churchill, it could be argued, really built his brand during the war. Ike took his brand as a soldier and as a general and became president of the United States post-war after he was president of Columbia University. He took what he built and what he learned and what he executed in the military and took it into private life. And so it is with during difficult times. Lee Iacocca, if you recall, during the darkest days of the auto industry, when everybody was in doom and gloom, Lee Iacocca came in and bailed out Chrysler and took them to great heights that they never ever saw before, or probably never saw after, as great a time. So this is a time of opportunity if you can take the opportunity and if you are committed. You know, there's a difference between being involved and being committed. And it's just as simple as bacon and eggs. In bacon and eggs, the chicken's involved, but the pig's committed. So you need to be committed.
In a time like this, where there is uncertainty about how long it will last, on a weekly basis, what do you advise leaders that they need to do to ensure that they can remain flexible and respond to the challenges of the moment, and ensure that their teams are engaged to respond appropriately?
Well, I think the big thing is communication at all times, Stu. You need to stay close to your team and to be in touch with them on a daily basis. You need to know your team. You know, you and I worked together for years and in the broadcast business, and you recall one of the things that I always used to like to do was walk around and talk to people and get to know people. And that just wasn't because I felt it was like a Dale Carnegie moment. In getting around and knowing your people and getting to know your people and being familiar with them, you really get a read on people and you really get a sense of who you can count on during a tough time, where you can go during a crisis. No different than playing quarterback on a football team. You know who you throw the ball to when there's 5 seconds left in the game and you're on the 5-yard line. You have no doubt about where you want to go or what play you want to call or what players you want to call on or who you put in the game and who you put on the field, or if it's, you know, the last 15 seconds and you need to tie the game up on a hockey game and you know who you put on the ice. There are certain people you call and people you call on during these difficult times. And the way that you become aware of that is watching them, studying them, learning about them, getting to know them, talking to them, listening to them, and really becoming familiar with your team. And this is a phenomenal time when we have more time to be able to do some of that, to be able to spend some time with them. Yeah, even though it might be on a remote basis on a phone call or whatever it is. But that begs, the question is, how much time are you spending between crises, so to speak, so that you know who to work with and who to act with and who to be able to call on during a crisis?
You know, much of what you talk about, Ron, is about frame of mind and level of commitment to working our way through this. I'm guessing that there is no time off right now for leaders because of the uncertainty. How important is it that they be 100% engaged?
Well, they need to be 100% engaged, and it's no different. Like right now, what I've done is call all my clients, existing clients, but call former clients too that aren't even paying money to me right now, aren't even really engaged, but letting them know that at no extra cost to them, give me a call right now if I can help you. If you need 15 minutes, 20 minutes, if you need a quick call, if you need a little boost, if you need a little bit of insight, if you need some perspective, if you need some feedback, if you're floating an idea that you want to get another opinion on, call me any time of the night or day. Let them know you're there for them. The same way if I'm leading a team in a management capacity right now or in any capacity, you want to let them know, I'm here for you. I'm here to support you. Don't worry about asking for help. Don't worry about telling me that you're not sure about things. Don't worry about telling me you're scared. We're all scared, but the reality is there's a difference between being scared and not doing anything. You know, all the guys. I was fortunate enough with my life to go to the D-Day beaches on 2 or 3 occasions and be there and study it and stand right at Omaha Beach. And all the guys that landed there, they'll tell you the ones that survived were scared as hell. But at some point in time, people have to get up off the beach and start moving and make things happen. And you can be scared, and we all get scared, but that doesn't mean you get immobilized. You need to be able to be decisive, and you need to be able to take action, and you need to be able to move forward.
I've done a couple of different interviews with business owners here this week who are looking at what cash reserves they have and worrying that they're going to evaporate here very quickly because their revenues have just, disappeared. One
Right.
who has a series of retail coffee shops and has been mandated closed, I thought came up with an incredibly innovative approach when he said to some of his landlords, look, you've got a couple of months of rent from me from when I signed that lease as a damage deposit. Can you right now take that as my payment for the next couple of months, and that can help get me through? I thought that's pretty innovative thinking.
It is innovative, and that's what you have to be right now, Stu, is innovative and creative, and you have to be quick thinking. But what it also means is that you need to reach out to your people and get as much feedback as you can and ask other people for advice. There's an old saying that I've always tried to live by, and for me it's a lot easier because I was never the smartest guy in the class. As my dad used to say, I was in the half of the class that made the top half possible.
Right.
But I've always believed that none of us is as smart as all of us, okay? And the more you can talk to people, and the more you can get feedback, and the more you can you can draw on people, the better opportunity you have to be successful, because you're going to get good ideas, you're going to get good feedback, you're going to get other opinions. And just by having some of that dialogue and just by engaging people, and that goes back to what I was saying earlier, sitting there stewing about it, worrying about it, and not taking action is lethal. You need to get active, you need to get moving, you need to start thinking, you need to be creative, you need to bounce ideas, you need to get other people engaged to help you and come up with ideas. But this speaks to a bigger thing too, Stu, that I've always talked about is that you sow the seeds of success during a crisis with all of the things that you do long before the crisis. The relationships that you build with people, with your bankers, with your suppliers, with your strategic partners, with your staff, with the people you work with. The stronger your relationships, the more time you put in at building those relationships during the good times, the more they're going to be there for you during the bad times. So I think this is a great lesson for a lot of people to really know is that, and to understand is that when this particular crisis is over, continue to do the things that are going to get you through this crisis. Continue to be strong in terms of your communication with your people, supporting your people, not forgetting about your people, recognizing your people, watching them do good thing and looking for the little things that they do right rather than the little things they do wrong. Building strong relationships with your clients, building strong relationships with your strategic partners, writing them personal notes, dropping them a line once in a while, for no other reason than to say thank you. I appreciate the relationship we have. I appreciate your support. I appreciate everything that we do together. Those things will bode well for you. And they're just the right thing to do. There's an old saying, Stu, managers do things right, but leaders do the right thing. And this is not a time about doing things right necessarily, but more a time about doing the right thing. The right thing by your people, the right thing by your company, the right thing by the people who are looking up to you, and the right thing by your customers. How can you how can you do things differently right now? For example, if I'm back running a sports team like I did for 5 years, this is a great time right now for a president and CEO to be reaching out to season ticket holders and making personal phone calls and thanking them for their business and letting them know that they really appreciate the fact of how much money they spend with them and that they really value their business. Reaching out to your suppliers, reaching out to everybody, reestablishing those personal relationships and taking the time to have a chat with them and asking them how they're doing, what they might be able to do to be able to help them down the road when things stabilize. So I think there's so many opportunities right now if we just look at it from a different perspective.
So, as you're talking about relationships, I'm reminded that Perry Bellegarde, the national chief of the Assembly of First Nations, said, without relationships, you can't build anything. But you also made me remember that back in the early 1990s, I did a piece with a fellow out of Singapore who was an early Asian investor in Vancouver. And I had asked him how he managed to weather the great economic crisis that hit the Five Tigers back then. And he said,
right,
just as you did, well, it's all about relationships. He said, we've worked together for a long time and we all took a hit. And we all, in essence, extended credit to one another. And then the people who were our longtime and loyal staff, they, in essence, extended credit to us because they said, okay, I know you can't pay me right now, but I'm coming back to work. I'm coming back to work knowing that you're gonna make me whole at some point along the way. And by sticking together and not saying, no, you got to pay me now, rather there was this community of people who knew one another. There was this interplay. They said, we're going to find a way through this. They became innovative in the way that they helped finance one another, build up a strong economy. And those relationships are then cemented for decades.
Stu, there's a great story about Thomas Jefferson when Ben Franklin and John Adams brought Thomas Jefferson to Washington to write the preamble to the Declaration of Independence. Jefferson, I think, was 31 or 32 years old. He was a very wealthy landowner from Virginia, and he came up to Washington, and he was very articulate. He was a great writer, and Franklin and Adams admired him and wanted him to spend time on putting this together because it was such an important part of what they were doing, obviously. And they came to him after a few months and they said, we're fascinated by something. And he said, what's that? They said, out of 7 days a week, 5 days a week, you have dinner with people you don't even know. You have dinner with groups of people and individuals in Washington you've never met before. And they said, why is that? And he looked at them and he said, you don't know? And they said, no. What's the reason? He said, man, gentlemen, it's very simple. It's hard to say no to people you know. And I think that's a great way of putting it. Jefferson said simply, it's hard to say no to people you know. Mm-hmm. It's hard to say no, I support you. No, I won't follow you. No, I won't help you. No, I won't be there for you. The more you know people, the more you get to know them, the more time you take in establishing, building that relationship one-on-one. It's the foundation of trust. And when you have trust with people, and people trust you, and trust your word, and trust your follow-through, and trust your ethics and your principles and your values, and trust your word, there's not a lot that can't be accomplished. Life is a team game.
Well, that's what's going to get us through this and, more importantly, out of it, because I think the road coming out of this is going to be a hard pull as well. It's not going to be an immediate return to business as was 2-3 weeks ago. We have to find ways to continue to work and ramp up out of this dramatic slowdown in the economy. Yeah,
this is not going to be easy. And nothing is as simple as we're talking about today. It's easy to say do this and do that, but this is going to take a lot of effort by a lot of people, and a lot of people pulling on the rope in the same direction at the same time. And it's going to require creativity. It's going to require hard work. It's going to require fortitude. It's going to require real commitment. And it's not going to be a straight line. There's going to be great days and there's going to be tough days. There's going to be good weeks, there's going to be bad weeks. There's going to be big wins and there's going to be big losses. But it is only going to be accomplished when people keep moving forward, keep the resolve, have a plan, have a strategy, and understand where they want to go, and then be really committed to get there. My daddy used to have a great saying. He said, Ron, everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. And the reality is you have to pay the price. And none of this stuff is easy. If you want to be a great piano player, you got to practice. If you want to be a great golfer and a pro, you probably got to keep swinging the club until your hands bleed. So it's going to require that kind of commitment by a lot more people at a lot of different levels in every area, in every phase of life.
I like what Arnold Schwarzenegger says. I don't know if you've seen this great motivational piece that he has that's been circulating around his 5 rules. He talks about dreaming big and believing. You absolutely have to believe. But then he follows it up by what I think is the most important component of what you're talking about here. He says, then you have to work. You have to work hard. There would be nothing worse than being able to start moving forward and you fail to achieve it because you didn't work hard enough. And we are really going to have to find that resolve to work incredibly hard here in the next couple of years to pull through this.
You have to believe, Stu. That's the big thing. You have to believe. When I was a kid, I was 5 years old. I was stricken with polio, and I was completely, I don't think I ever told you that, but I was completely paralyzed from the waist down for 7.5 months, laid in the hospital in a room with 7 other kids when all the other kids were, in wheelchairs and braces and iron lungs and everything. And for 7.5 months, I couldn't walk. And all I could think about every day was at some point in time, I wanted to play football. I wanted to play football. I wanted to play football. And that was a dream I had. And they used to pick us up every morning at 11 o'clock in the morning and take us down for exercises. And kids would be screaming and yelling and crying because it hurt so much to try and walk. It hurt so much to stand up, and it hurt so much. But I could hardly wait to get there every day because I just wanted so much to get out and play. But you have to believe, and you have to work, and and you have to be very lucky in a lot of cases, and you have to have good fortune as well.
Yeah. Well, Ron, I think, first of all, thank you for doing this, sharing your insights. Together, I believe that leaders can show the way, can help us find those solutions because they rose to those positions because they were able to find ways, even when times were good, that were new, innovative, thoughtful, unique. And that's what we need to call on as we move forward. Thank you very much for doing this.
And Stu, one thing in closing that I think is really important for all of us to remember, okay? We have leaders in organizations at every level. They're not just in the CEO suite. Right. We have leaders in many companies in the shipping room. We have leaders on the production floor. We have leaders in every single department in every company. And what we need to do is to recognize those people. We have to support those people. We have to praise those people. And we have to know that we have to make champions out of those people at every single level. Not just look for leadership in top executive roles, but leadership in every part of the company. and we have to reward it, we have to push it, and we have to be able to praise it, and we have to be able to look for it and be always trying to see where it is and not just expect it from the people making the most money. All of the companies that I've worked for, I was so fortunate to have people in leadership roles who displayed unbelievable leadership in roles that a lot of people would never believe, there was leadership. But when you have leadership in all of the departments at all levels, that's when you have success.
It's a good note to end on. Thank you, Ron. Wishing you continued good health to you, your family, and all of your associates, because we all need to be strong and work together to have a prosperous future, one that we know that we can realize again here in Canada. Thank you.
And we'll get there. And Stu, thank you. It's always a pleasure to be with you. And you do great work. Your show is a very important show, a very important addition to what's going on today. And now more than ever, we need people like you focusing on important topics like leadership and really looking at the key issues and what's going on in our city and around the country. So keep up the good work, and my best to you and your family for good health. Stay well.
Thanks, Ron. Thank you. Stay well.
Okay, Bill. Bye-bye.